say everybody take lift with the only one going up. Honestly.
Hello again. So yeah, I kind of forgot about the fact I had a family. It sounds a bit dark, but yeah, it was a bit of an oversight, particularly not forgetting the fact I had a family, but more the fact that in the middle of this whole 6-month experiment, there's an 8-week school holiday. So that kind of changed my planning. It was great to see my son's VO2 max accelerate, but I don't think mine has very much. And I'll talk about that a little bit in this video about what I actually did. It's also worth noting I do have a second son, which I felt a bit bad about not including in the start of this video. So you can see a picture of him here. I think he looks a little bit like Toad from Mario Kart, which is entertaining. And yeah, like I said, structured training's kind of gone out the window over these last 2 months. Hopefully I've kind of maintained things. What's going to be funny is that I've not actually filmed the tests yet or recorded them, unlike previous videos. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to record this bit now. I'll talk about what I've done over the last 2 months in a more structured way, and then I'm going to record the tests right now in real time, which could be kind of horrible and is slightly terrifying. So yeah, let's talk about what I actually did over these last 2 months.
What I did.
So as you may recall, this whole project kind of started off just focusing entirely on volume. So if we look at the hours I was doing per week, at the first 2 months of the experiment, it was a beautifully executed plan where I just increased my volume every week, getting up to really high volumes in line with a kind of professional. But looking back, doing quite a lot of trashy stuff as well, like just a lot of junk miles, I guess you would call them, like pointless endeavors that didn't really probably increase my cycling performance. And so for the second 2 months, that completely fell off a cliff. If we were to purely look at the volume lens, like how many hours I was doing per week, you can see it's just pretty chaotic. And that was because I was just having to sort of cycle whenever I could, and things were really unpredictable. If we look at this from like the chart perspective, again, you can see that compared to previous months, my volume of cycling is actually a much greater percentage, and I'm doing much less stuff like yoga schmoga, and yeah, so more of a focus on cycling. What I was specifically doing within the cycling exercises was like partly just having fun with friends and family, and doing some really nice climbs around Corsica and the south of France and stuff, which is the part you don't see in the graphs, which was really amazing, going cycling with my family and stuff like that. And aside from that, I was also doing quite a lot of interval training, because I knew that well, first of all, it's really good sort of bang for your buck. If you do like an hour and a half, you can get a lot of stuff done in that hour and a half. And also because I knew I had a criterium race at the end of the summer holidays, which I wanted to kind of be on form for, and I knew my FTP was really low. So in order to try and increase like short-term power, which you need for a criterium race where you're surging a lot, doing a lot of sprints and also bridging gaps between groups of people, I did 2 interval sessions fairly regularly. One was like 15-second sprints, 15 seconds on, 15 seconds rest, 15 second sprint, 15 second rest, do that 15 times, then have like a 5-minute break, and then do that block 6 times, as you can see in this sort of graph here. Gets your heart rate really high, and also just trains your legs, I guess, to be able to do these short bursts of power. And the second interval session I did, which was more like sustained power, where it's just 5-minute pushes at pretty high power output, which actually increase throughout those 5 minutes. This is kind of called it bridging or something like that, some people would call it. So you're training to sort of be able to bridge a gap in a race, for example, by pushing quite hard for 5 minutes, 5-minute break, push hard for 5 minutes, 5 minutes break, do that 6 or 7 times. So these 2 interval sessions I thought were really good, and in my mind they've maybe increased my FTP a bit, but I don't really know, so we're going to find out shortly. And aside from that, I went cycling in the Alps quite a bit, which was really cool. You can see here, did some really nice trail riding and single track stuff, which was not filmed very well because it was really rainy that day. But importantly, I did film this magnificent goat that I cycled past, which is pretty cool. So yeah, anyway, stop halting now, I guess, and I have to go and test myself. So let's see what actually happened to this body.
What happened?
Just desperately buying myself 1 more minute before I go and do these tests. I thought it was maybe useful to just look back on the previous data and make a guess about what I think has happened to my VO2 max over these last couple of months. VO2 max is what I'm going to test first, and then I'll test FTP, which is a lot more horrible as a test. So VO2 max started off pretty kind of mediocre, in between fair and good technically on the scale of things, but it jumped up really quickly in my mind over just a couple of months to being super high. So for me, that showed that just high volume training can really quickly have an impact on your VO2 max and your cardiovascular functioning. So yeah, I'm excited to see what's going to happen next. I reckon it's maybe gone down a bit to about 62. That's what I'm going to guess. You can have a guess too, perhaps. And yeah, let's go and do the test. Okay, so outside, heart rate strap on, metronome ready, step 40 centimeters. I'm going to do it. Cool. Yes, seemed good. So now I'm in Strava looking at the event, and that's what you can see here. And I just need to look at the average heart rate for the last 2 minutes. So the last 2 minutes is from like here until just before the end. And, oh, cliffhanger, I can't see it. 119. I think 119 is pretty good. I'm pretty sure it's better than previous times. I think it's like 120 last time, so I just need to put that into the thing. My weight's changed a bit, which might impact things. So yeah, this is the Nerdy Chart Fest, and I've put my weight in already, and I anticipated I would get 1, 2, 3 just to continue the cliffhanger. This is the test I did, and I estimated my heart rate would be 123 BPM at the end for the last 2 minutes of me stepping up and down excitingly. So actually 119 though, so that's 122, that's 120. Yes! New world record. What does that give me? Yeah, like 5.2. So cliffhanger, if we do some quick mathematics, 5,200 divided by my weight, which is 74 kilos. Yes! I think you'll know what that means if you remember anything from the previous videos. So yeah, I anticipated 62, but above 70, Tour de France average, I'm hired. So yeah, just to do this in real time, that, not very effectively, that puts me up like here. So it has continued to improve. So volume is useless, quality training is more important, or just VO2 max. Yeah, I don't know what it means. I'm not a scientist, but hey, pretty pleased. Cool, so let's do the FTP test now. That's going to be a lot less entertaining for myself at least. So yeah, let's do that now and see what happened to my functional threshold power. Nice.
FTP.
So just quickly looking back at FTP's sort of history before we jump into this nasty test. I started off as a fair guy, which was what it was. And then it became moderate, which was very exciting. But I mean, zooming out, nothing's really changed that much. And because I knew this was sort of my weakness as a cyclist, I've been trying to focus on it a bit more. So, I mean, it'd be pretty frustrating if it hasn't gone up at all. I'm hoping kind of conservatively that it's gone up to 3.45 watts per kilogram. It'd be amazing to be considered statistically good, however, and to reach that kind of category after all of this. But yeah, in order to do that, I'm going to structure the test as follows. So I do 10 minutes at 237 watts, 15 minutes at 255 watts, which is like my target FTP wattage. And then the difficulty of the test becomes increased by 10 watts every 3 minutes until I reach exhaustion, which is fun. And that's why it's such a horrible test. So yeah, I'm going to go and do that now. Okay, so put my bike in here. Looks a bit more classy. And I've done a 20-minute warm-up, and now I've begun. It feels okay. God, it's just pretty horrible already. I thought it was like psychological or something. This is deeply unpleasant. So as predicted, that was absolutely horrible. I gave up like 30 seconds into the ramp section, which gave me an average watts of 249, I think it was. Well, I know it was, which gave me an overall FTP of 3.36, which is amusingly 0.01 watts per kilogram higher than it was 2 months ago. So something's not working that well. I'll talk about my plan to improve FTP at the end of this video and my kind of training plan there. Hopefully I can see some really good improvements over the next 2 months, making me a more rounded cyclist of bicycles. But before that, let's talk about real world success.
The real world.
So that's a pretty cool slow motion video of a race that I did. That wasn't actually my group, I was after them. You can see a cool photograph of me in the front of my race here though, pretty sick. And yeah, the race looks like this. It's like a 2.5 kilometer loop that you just do repeatedly, and it's pretty fast because it's flat, so you're going to like 40 kilometers an hour on average, and lots of little sprints and attacks. There's about 60 people that go around at once. And yeah, I did pretty well. I was pretty aggressive in the front a lot of the time. The second last loop, I was in the front and I felt like I was going to win the thing. And then I got completely destroyed by a group of people that sprinted and blocked the whole thing and came not at all first. I don't know what position I was. I think I was like 20 something. But yeah, I felt pretty good in the race. It's definitely the best I've felt in a race like that before. So that was a success in itself. Aside from that, I got a lot of personal bests on climbs is one way of looking at success. So climbs like this, a 30-minute climb, really blasted it up and took like a couple of minutes off of my personal best, which I was pleased with. That's in Corsica. And then this is a really cool ride as well. This is a 70-kilometer loop that I've done loads of times. And you can see I've got a personal best in almost every section. And I think this is partly because of training, but also because of getting a new bike. So it's pretty crazy the impact that having a new bike can have on your speed. Also potentially because I shaved my legs, because I read this article about how shaving your legs can increase or decrease your drag by 7%. So that's pretty convincing and a pretty big milestone in life. But yeah, aside from that, there's no other real world success to talk about. So let's talk about, more importantly, how I'm going to fix this FTP crisis.
The plan of next.
So what I've kind of done is, well, I've done a lot of thinking about what my actual overall objective is, which is something that I've been thinking about a lot over the last few months, aside from just getting better at cycling. And then I've created a training plan, which I'll talk about now. I'll try and do so quite quickly, which tries to set me up for success in my objective. So my objective overall is I've decided to do a 24-hour race. It's a long story for another day, but it's essentially this mountain bike traverse that I'm going to try and complete in the fastest known time. So it's a little bit ambitious, but I have a long time to train for it. And in order to build up to that, I'm going to do multiple 24-hour or a few 24-hour races beforehand. The first of which is in January. So I have 4 months before that first 24-hour race to train for it. And what I've decided to do, based on the fact my VO2 max, my endurance is pretty good. I can do long rides already, but not very fast, or not with a lot of power. So what I'm going to do is focus 2 months on power and 2 months on endurance. And that's kind of how I'm going to focus it. I've already done arguably a big focus on endurance as well. So I've created a simple spreadsheet which plans out my next 4 months towards this first race, which is in Scotland in January, called the Strath Puffer, which is an interesting 24-hour mountain bike race. It looks absolutely horrible. And yeah, each block, also it's important, I've referenced school holidays here, which is a big learning that I have had. So I've got 2 7-week sort of pushes between holidays, and I've broken it down to 2 blocks. So the first block is top end power, so I'm going to focus on that side of my power curve. And then the second block is a more sustained power, so more like threshold, longer efforts at high power. And each of these blocks has a list of 3 workouts that I have to do each week. So in the first block, I have to do a bridges interval section, microbursts interval session, and a long effort. So each week I have to do that. And then on top of that, ideally I will do 2 strength sessions, a VO2 max session, and some trail running. So that's kind of my plan for each week, hopefully quite realistic. And then the workouts that I'm doing, the sort of key workouts each week, change a little bit depending on which block I'm in. So a really simple setup that I'm hoping leads me to increasing my FTP while maintaining my endurance, and actually extending my endurance towards the 24-hour event and being able to do it quite fast. That's my goal. A lot more detail I could go into, but I'll save that for another day. And yeah, if you have any feedback on this kind of thing, if you have any ideas about how you would maybe approach such a training plan, I would love to know those. And aside from that, thank you very much for watching, and see you next time.
Bon bah voilà, bonne vidéo.
Thanks for watching.